This video is brought to you by XStation from XTV.
What's up guys, Saf here on SuperSaf TV and welcome to another SuperSaf style camera comparison. This time it's between the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra and the Huawei P40 Pro Plus. That's a real mouthful. That's what she said. Anyway, so we're going to be checking out all aspects of the cameras, front facing, rear facing, images, video, audio, all of it. Starting off with the front facing cameras, filming at 4K. Let's test out the stabilization. So, just gonna walk. Now let's go ahead and run. See what the dynamic range is like. Now to test out the rear facing cameras. It's a good test for dynamic range here. We are using the primary cameras for the moment, so let's just test out stabilization using the primary cameras. Walking, and now let's run. Now to test the ultra wide cameras for video. Once again, we'll test out stabilization, so walking and run. Now both devices do have optical zoom, so we are currently using 3.5, which is the default marker on the P40 Pro Plus, and on the S20 Ultra we are using forex. So that's what you can see. Now we can go much further, so let's try 10x. For the 10x zoom, it's actually quite difficult to do these together, so I'm actually doing them separately and then we'll put them together side by side. Now the S20 Ultra does have 8K video recording. So we've switched to the 8K video camera, whereas we're using the primary 4K video camera on the P40 Pro Plus. So you can just see the difference in quality. I do find that 8K works best when there's no real motion and when you're on a static frame. It does also crop in on the S20 Ultra. Now both can also film at 4K 60 frames a second, just to quickly show you what the quality and stabilization is like. So let's just go ahead and run. And we're also going to test 4K 60 frames a second from the front facing cameras. So you can see dynamic range results and also stabilization. Autofocus video test on the P40 Pro Plus, and seems to be doing pretty good. Same test on the S20 Ultra, and it definitely has been improved with all of the recent software updates. Seems to be quite fast actually.
Now before we continue, a quick thanks to our sponsor for this video, which is XStation by XTB. Now we've seen the financial markets move quite a bit because of the pandemic, and you may have already heard that right now is a good time to invest. I'm very new to investments, so I'm glad I found XStation because it's very, very easy to use. Their app allows you to speculate on the movement of over 1,500 markets like stocks, gold, oil, forex, and even crypto. And my favorite thing about the app is before you go in and invest real money, you can actually set up a virtual demo account, which is going to act like a real account, but with virtual money, and you can make some investments and really get a feel for things. If you want to try out XStation for yourself, then I'll be leaving a link in the description below. It's available on both iOS and Android. Now remember, as with any investment, you can lose money as well as make profit. So definitely try out that virtual demo account first and see how things go. Let's now have a quick look at the hardware before we move on to images. For the front-facing cameras, the S20 Ultra does have a high resolution, but the P40 Pro Plus does have two front-facing cameras. One of them is a depth sensor. Now moving on to the rear-facing cameras, we have an interesting setup. Both devices do have ultra-wide primary as well as telephoto cameras. The P40 Pro Plus, however, does have two zoom cameras. One of them is at around 3x and another one is at around 10x, which is the highest optical zoom that we've seen on any smartphone. The S20 Ultra does have around 4x optical zoom, and the rest of it is using a hybrid of optical and digital zoom. So it'll be interesting to see the results here. And finally, all images that you see have been shot on automatic. I haven't tweaked any settings. The one thing that I have done is switched on the scene optimizer on both devices, and that's to make the software work as best as possible. Right, so starting off with some images with the primary camera, here you can see that both images are doing really well, and dynamic range is also pretty good on both. The P40 Pro Plus does have the more vibrant image, and it also seems to have a little bit more contrast. But generally speaking, I think both images are doing really well. Now let's test out the zoom. So using the default zoom levels on both devices, so this is the optical zoom, we've got 3 times on the P40 Pro Plus, and on the S20 Ultra, it is around 4 times. And here I do prefer the S20 Ultra. You can see that there's more detail in the shadow areas of the trees, and it is overall a sharper image. But then things change when you go to 10x, because this is where that 10x optical zoom of the P40 Pro Plus kicks in. And here you can see that although the S20 Ultra is doing okay, the P40 Pro Plus does have a much sharper image. Now, if we go in 30x, then once again, the zoom capabilities of the P40 Pro Plus really do stand out here. You can see more detail, it's a sharper image. You can also make out some of the texture on the building, whereas the S20 Ultra has kind of smoothened this out. Now, testing out another image in good lighting outdoors, I think both are doing a very good job. The P40 Pro Plus has kind of concentrated more on the shadows, whereas the S20 Ultra has concentrated more on the highlights in the clouds, but nevertheless, both are doing very well. Now, using the first stage of optical zoom on both devices, once again, I do prefer the S20 Ultra at this level. It's an overall sharper image. Now, when we do go to 10x, this is quite interesting because the brightness does drop on the P40 Pro quite significantly. So let's just switch back and see again. You can see that difference here, whereas the S20 Ultra is more consistent. Now, this may be because the P40 Pro Plus at that 10x does have a very narrow aperture, around f4.5, I believe it is. But nevertheless, it is the sharper image overall, and this is a little bit more obvious when we do get to around 30x. If you look at the bricks, these are much clearer on the P40 Pro Plus compared to that of the S20 Ultra. Now, here's another image with the primary cameras, and here I do prefer the S20 Ultra. The shadow details are better maintained. The P40 Pro Plus is a little darker in the shadow areas. Now, if we start testing the zoom, we do have the forex, which I do prefer once again on the S20 Ultra compared to the 3x on the P40 Pro Plus. And then when we do go to around 10x, here the color once again changes quite a bit of the P40 Pro Plus. So if we switch back and forth, you can see that the color has shifted quite a bit when we've gone from 3x to 10x. But the image is sharper compared to the S20 Ultra, and this is a little bit more obvious when we do go in 100% on both of these images. Now, when we do go over to 30x, then the clarity is more obvious here on the P40 Pro Plus. If you look at the slates on top of the roof of this house, they are clearer on the P40 Pro Plus, whereas they have become a bit of a smudge on the S20 Ultra. Now we're going to test out the 100x zoom. I really did not want to do this, but if I do a SuperSaf style camera comparison and I miss out something like this, then you guys are never going to forgive me. So let's go ahead and look at the 100x zoom, which I am not a fan of on any smartphone, but we'll just analyze it. So here you can see that although neither image is usable, the P40 Pro Plus is doing a better job. Hands down, it's a sharper image. Once again, you can make out some of those lines on the roof, whereas those have become a bit of a smudge on the S20 Ultra. Now, to further test this 100x zoom, for those of you who are interested, here is an image. This is what I was seeing from the primary cameras. Now, I thought, let me try to get in 100 times to that crane. And it's quite impressive that you can get this close with either of these smartphones, but it doesn't mean you have to use either of them. But anyway, here once again, the P40 Pro Plus, it's a sharper image. The S20 Ultra is using a lot of software processing here. The lines kind of look like they are a bit of a painting, and this is something that I have found the S20 Ultra does do. There is a lot of software at work here, and it's very obvious, so I do prefer the P40 Pro Plus here again. And to test the 100x zoom one last time, this is what I was seeing. This is the primary camera, and then when we do go to 100x, we can spot these people in the absolute distance, and this is where the stalker mode really kicks in if you are using that 100x zoom. And once again, the P40 Pro Plus, a sharper overall image at 100x, whereas the S20 Ultra is kind of doing like a bit of a painting. It's just a bit of a blur, to be honest. Now, I want to emphasize that I really would not use 100x zoom in any situation, to be honest. But if you are interested, yes, the P40 Pro Plus does have better results at 100x. But anyway, let's move on to the ultra-wide cameras. So here is a shot from the primary cameras to show you the difference. Firstly, great shot on both devices. This is my Precious, if you don't already know. I'm not flexing, I just really like on my car. But anyway, I think both are doing a really good job overall. Slight differences in color, but in terms of overall detail and sharpness, thumbs up. Now, when we do switch to the ultra-wide camera, there are two things that I noticed immediately. Firstly, the S20 Ultra does have a much wider angle of view, so you are getting much more into your shots. But the P40 Pro is also changing quite a bit in color. So if we switch back and forth between the primary and the ultra-wide, you can see that there is a clear difference in color on the P40 Pro's cameras when you do switch between them. Now, just to show you another example, here is the shot that we had a look at earlier on of the National Space Center. Now, when we do go over onto the ultra-wide, the colors are a lot more muted. Now, the AI scene optimizer was switched on both, but there is that inconsistency. Once again, the S20 Ultra does have a wider angle of view, which I do prefer. Now, moving on to another example. So this is the shot that we looked at earlier on. When we do go from the primary camera to the ultra-wide, there isn't as much of a color difference this time on the P40 Pro Plus, but you can definitely notice that you are getting much more into your shots on the S20 Ultra. You can see more of that tree, which isn't really visible on the P40 Pro Plus. Now let's move on to low light. So this first shot I actually took at automatic. I didn't actually go into the night mode just to see how they would perform at default. And here, obviously, the P40 Pro is doing much better. I do think this is thanks to that RYYB sensor, the red, yellow, and blue sensor, compared to the red, green, and blue. Huawei do say that this allows 40% more light in. And based on the results here, I think that is definitely true because you are getting much more light here on the P40 Pro Plus. And it didn't take like a long time to take the shot. Press the shutter and it was taken within a couple of seconds. It wasn't like I had to sit there like you have to do with night mode. So very impressed here. Now, when we do use the respective night modes on both devices, I still do prefer the P40 Pro Plus. The S20 Ultra does now have this purple hue and it's quite soft in a lot of areas, whereas we've got a much sharper image on the P40 Pro Plus. Although, if I'm honest, I prefer it without night mode. So if we do switch back, I do prefer the image. The colors are a little bit better, not using night mode, but the image does become a little bit sharper when you do use night mode. Now here's another shot, once again, just taking at automatic before we use night mode, and the P40 Pro shining here with its RYYB sensor. You are getting in a lot more light. Now when we do use night mode on both devices, the S20 Ultra does actually do a pretty good job here. Colors are different on both devices. I really think it's going to come down to personal preference, but I think in this instance, both are doing really good with night mode. Now an indoor low light shot, here, once again, automatic, and the P40 Pro. I mean, look at that. Big difference here. That sensor is really showing its low light capabilities. Now, when we do use night mode, the S20 Ultra image does improve, but I still do prefer the P40 Pro Plus overall. Now, moving on to low light images from the ultra wide cameras, the night mode was used on both devices. And here, I actually prefer the S20 Ultra. It might not be as bright, but the text does look sharper on the S20 Ultra. But going into a very low light situation, with the night mode turned on. I do prefer the P40 Pro Plus. I mean, neither are doing an amazing job, but the P40 Pro Plus is definitely winning out here. The S20 Ultra is really struggling, and it's a very, very soft image. You can barely even see the path, whereas you can see that much better on the P40 Pro Plus. Now, using the zoom in a low light situation was quite difficult, but the P40 Pro Plus doing a better job here. You can see that the text is sharper. So this is at the 3x on the P40 Pro Plus, 4x on the S20 Ultra, which is the optical zoom level on both devices. Now, when we do go in 10x, this was actually very challenging to take because the P40 Pro Plus was pretty much just showing me a blank screen. And here I do prefer the S20 Ultra. You can see the text much better. It's a brighter image. Now, this might once again be down to the very narrow aperture that you have at that zoom level, whereas it looks like the S20 Ultra is using software plus the 4x optical zoom. So it does give you an overall better result at the 10x zoom in low light. Now, looking at some portrait images where the background is blurred, both devices do have a time of flight sensor, so you can see that the edges have been maintained very, very well. The bit between my arm has also been blurred out, which I'm very, very happy with. Slight differences in color. I do prefer the colors a little bit better on the S20 Ultra compared to the P40 Pro. But nevertheless, both are doing a good job. This was taken from the primary cameras. Now, if we do switch to 2x, which in my opinion is the best sort of focal length for portraits on a smartphone, here, both are actually doing a pretty good job. The P40 Pro is sharper, however. The S20 Ultra does look a bit too soft for my liking. Now, some of the sharpness does seem to be software sharpness on the P40 Pro Plus, but I still do prefer it to the S20 Ultra. Now, on the P40 Pro Plus, you also have an option for 3x for portraits, and this, you can definitely notice that software processing that is giving that over-sharpened effect, shall we say. And I definitely think that the 2x is better to use than the 3x for portraits on the P40 Pro Plus. Now, moving on to another portrait shot using the primary cameras. And here, the P40 Pro Plus for me is doing much better. The S20 Ultra has struggled a little bit with the edges around my head and hair. It's also not picked up that section between my arms, and my jacket and my clothes are also a little bit brighter on the P40 Pro Plus, so it seems to have done a better job in terms of the exposure. Now, using the 2x on here, once again, I do prefer the P40 Pro Plus. It does have a brighter image and it's also sharper. I know some of that might be down to software, but the S20 Ultra does look a bit too soft for my liking. Once again, you can do the 3x, but I'm not hugely impressed with the results at the 3x when you're shooting portraits on the P40 Pro Plus. Now, moving on to selfies. So here we've got a shot in my car and both doing a really good job overall. I do prefer the colors a little bit on the P40 Pro Plus. If you look at my jacket, I think that it's a bit more accurate, whereas the S20 Ultra is a little bit more on the yellow side. Now, an outdoor shot with good light, I think both are doing a good job overall. The P40 Pro Plus has maintained more details in the shadows, whereas the S20 Ultra is a little bit dark in the foreground. But overall, I think both are doing a good job. Colors here, I would say, are a bit more accurate on the S20 Ultra. The P40 Pro Plus, a little bit on the blue side. And if we do test out an extreme situation where there's a lot of backlight, the S20 Ultra doing more of a silhouette, whereas the P40 Pro Plus has kind of prioritized the foreground without blowing out the background too much. So I do prefer the P40 Pro Plus here compared to the S20 Ultra when it comes to dynamic range from the front-facing camera. Now, using the portrait mode from both devices, I think both are doing a good job here. The S20 Ultra does struggle quite a bit with me, especially when I have sunglasses on with the beard. If I remove one or the other, then it's okay, although this beard doesn't come off. But anyway, I do think that the P40 Pro Plus is doing a better job here. If you look at the seat behind me, the S20 Ultra has kind of taken that as part of me as well. So it's kind of done an edge around that. Whereas the P40 Pro Plus has blurred that a little bit too. So that depth sensor really does seem to be coming into play, which I do really like. Now, here is another portrait mode selfie. And in terms of edges, I think both are doing really, really good. I do prefer the P40 Pro Plus image overall, I would say. It just seems a tad sharper. And also, once again, those shadow details are a little brighter compared to that of the S20 Ultra. Although the S20 Ultra does seem to have more accurate colors when you look at those blacks compared to the P40 Pro Plus. But might just be personal preference, but I do like the selfie camera thanks to that depth sensor of the P40 Pro Plus. Now, low light selfies here, P40 Pro Plus clearly doing better. It's a sharper image. The colors are also better maintained. The S20 Ultra looking a little bit soft. Now, using the front-facing flash on both devices, once again, I do prefer the P40 Pro Plus here. It's not as washed out, and it's also sharper compared to the S20 Ultra, which is quite soft overall. Right, so those were the results. Wow, that's a lot to cover. This is going to be a long camera comparison, I already know it. Anyway, I think both did perform really well. I'm pretty impressed with the software updates that we've had on the S20 Ultra. Huawei have said that there's going to be another software update before the official release around the 25th of June. But nevertheless, it's still doing pretty good overall right now. Now, for images with the primary camera, I think both did a really good job in a good light. We had lots of detail, good dynamic range. Colors were here and there a few times, but I do think that's going to come down to personal preference. Now, when it comes to zoom, this is quite interesting because when you're at around the 3x to 4x mark, the S20 Ultra does perform better. But when you do go on to 10x or anything above that, then the P40 Pro Plus does perform better. Now, that is thanks to that 10 times optical zoom periscope lens. Now, the S20 Ultra also uses periscope zoom technology at around the 4x, which might be the reason why it's performing better at that level compared to the P40 Pro Plus, because at that level, the P40 Pro Plus is not using periscope technology. Now, when it comes to low light, I think overall P40 Pro Plus, that RYYB sensor just means you can get in a lot more light. So we did have consistently better results even without night mode on the P40 Pro Plus. Man, that's a mouthful. But for the zoom in low light, as we saw at around 3 to 4x, the P40 Pro Plus did do better. But when you went to 10x, the S20 Ultra did do better. Now, that might be because of that narrow aperture on the P40 Pro Plus at that zoom level. For ultra wide, I did prefer the S20 Ultra overall because you do have a much wider angle of view, and colors were inconsistent on the P40 Pro Plus when we went to that ultra wide camera compared to the primary camera. Now, the colors can easily be improved via a software update. And as mentioned, we will be getting a software update soon. And also when we did go to the zoom, I think the color consistency did change quite a bit as well, as you saw. So hopefully these are things that can be improved before the final software update that's going to be coming soon. Now, for portraits, I think both did okay, but I did prefer the sharper results on the P40 Pro Plus more. Now, for video, it was actually quite close. I did prefer the P40 Pro Plus in certain situations, and in others, I preferred the S20 Ultra. So for overall dynamic range, I did prefer the P40 Pro Plus, especially at that shot where we were at the reservoir. The S20 Ultra was a little bit too dark for my liking compared to the P40 Pro Plus. For stabilization, I think both were pretty similar and both did a really good job. But when you do get to 60 frames a second, then the S20 Ultra was more stable. The P40 Pro Plus, it seems, does not have stabilization at 60 frames a second. The S20 Ultra does have 8K video, if that's something that you're interested in. And it also seemed to do a better job at 10x zoom for video. Now, it seems like the P40 Pro Plus is not using that 10 times optical zoom for video. I'm not sure if this is once again down to that narrow aperture, which might produce dark results. But the S20 Ultra for video at 10x was definitely better. Now, for video from the front-facing camera, I did prefer the S20 Ultra overall. It was wider. The P40 Pro does seem to punch in quite a bit. And I did think it had slightly better dynamic range, especially when we went to 4K 60 frames a second. However, for general selfies, I did prefer the P40 Pro Plus. It's got a great portrait mode. That's thanks to that depth sensor. For slow motion, the P40 Pro Plus does have higher frame rates. You've got up to, it's around 7,000 something. I don't quite remember what the number is, but it's super slow motion, around 256 times. Now, as far as I'm aware, it is using software to kind of fill in a few of these frames, but regardless, that level of slow motion is very, very impressive on any smartphone. For audio, you can go back and have a listen. I think personally for me, I did prefer the P40 Pro Plus overall. That's what I think anyway. What do you guys think? Do let me know in the comments below. If you want to see lots of images posted from lots of different devices, then do give me a follow on Instagram. I'm at SuperSaf. I really do hope you enjoyed this very detailed and in-depth video, SuperSaf style. I try to cover as much as I could. Took me many days. If you did, then do hit that thumbs up button, and please do subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon so you don't miss any future coverage. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on SuperSaf TV, and I'll see you next time.